child was enough to keep the forest quiet. But this year, the forest screamed. What the villagers saw that night was only the beginning. And the truth buried in those woods was far worse than any sacrifice could pay for.
Hi, welcome back, my friends of the dark. If you're returning, you already know the kind of shadows we walk together. If you're new here, consider this your invitation to step inside. Tonight's story takes us to a forgotten village in Europe, where a ritual meant to keep an ancient curse at bay has failed. The forest has woken, the spirits are hungry, and no one will be spared. Stay with me and don't look away, because once you hear what happened, you may never feel safe walking past the woods again.
The village always smelled of smoke on the night of the offering. Ash, blood, and damp earth clung to the air, heavy as the silence that followed once the chosen child was carried into the trees. Every year, it was the same. One child, one sacrifice. The elders claimed it was the only way to keep the forest quiet, to stop the whispers that clawed at the edges of the village when the wind howled. Nobody dared to question it. Nobody dared to look too long at the trees. This year, they chose a boy. He was barely 12, trembling in his thin wool shirt as his mother's sobs were drowned out by the chanting. His older brother stood frozen in the crowd, helpless, while his best friend clenched his fist so tightly his nails drew blood. The boy vanished into the dark with the elders. The chanting faded. The forest waited. But instead of silence, the night split open. A sound rose from the trees, not a whisper, but a scream, a long, tearing shriek that made the torches gutter and every villager collapsed to their knees. The sacrifice didn't work, and the forest was awake.
The scream from the forest did not stop. It twisted through the night like something alive, rattling shutters, shivering through the bones of every man, woman, and child huddled in the square. Torches flickered out one by one, as though the flame itself was afraid. No one moved, no one breathed, until the elders stumbled back into the village, their robes torn, their faces pale with mud and blood. But the boy was not with them. Lucas felt his stomach turn to ice. His younger brother, Emil, was supposed to be gone forever, swallowed by the trees. But at least that meant safe. At least that meant the village would survive another year. Now, with the forest howling, Lucas couldn't tell if Emil had been taken or rejected. Beside him, his best friend Marek whispered, "Something went wrong." His voice cracked like dry wood, too loud against the silence that had fallen after the scream. A dozen villagers turned to glare at him, eyes wide with terror, as if even speaking might invite the forest to reach further in. The head elder finally raised his trembling hand. His lips moved, but the words that came out were not commands, not reassurance. They refused him. The words spread like sickness through the crowd. Refused. The forest had never rejected an offering before. A sob broke loose from Emil and Lucas's mother, a wail that seemed to answer the shrieking forest. Lucas wanted to run to her, to hold her, but his legs were rooted. He felt Marek's hand grip his arm, grounding him, though Marek's own fingers were shaking violently. The ground shuddered once, faint but undeniable, as though something massive had stirred beneath the roots of the forest. Birds erupted into the sky from the black line of trees, their cries mingling with the unnatural scream. Then just as suddenly, the sound stopped. The night fell into a silence so heavy it seemed to press down on their chests. Lucas almost wished the screaming had continued, because silence meant the forest was listening. The village did not sleep. Families locked themselves inside their cottages, bolting shutters, piling wood against doors. The elders argued in the square until their voices broke, some insisting they try another sacrifice, others swearing it was already too late. Lucas sat in the dark of his home, his mother clutched in his arm, her nails digging into his skin. She rocked back and forth, whispering Emil's name, as if saying it enough times would bring him back. His father sat in the corner with a bottle, staring into nothing. Marek slipped in through the back door. His face was pale, lips tight, eyes darting. "They're going back tomorrow," he whispered. "The elders, they say if they bring another child." "No," Lucas hissed. The word burned his throat. "They can't. It was supposed to be Emil. That was the deal." Marek's eyes shifted. What if Emil's not dead? What if he's still out there? The idea hit Lucas like a knife. Emil, lost in the woods, alive, waiting for rescue. It was impossible. The forest never gave back what it took, but the ritual had failed. Nothing about this year was the same. Before he could speak, a sound scratched against the wall outside. Both boys froze. A dragging noise, slow, deliberate, circling the house. Lucas's mother whimpered. His father didn't move. Marek grabbed Lucas's arm, whispering, "Don't look." But Lucas did. He pressed his eye to the shutter's crack. Something pale moved between the trees. Small, thin. A boy. Lucas's breath caught in his chest. Emil. The figure turned its head. Even at a distance, Lucas knew. The way the boy stood, the slope of his shoulders. It was his brother. But Emil's face was wrong. Too white, too smooth, like wax stretched too tightly. His eyes were wide, black pools that swallowed the torchlight. His mouth opened, and though Lucas couldn't hear the words, he saw the shape of them. "Come." The figure jerked once like a puppet on strings and slipped back into the forest. Lucas staggered back from the window. "It's him," he gasped. "Marek, it's him!" Marek's face twisted. "No, that's not your brother." But Lucas was already moving. The forest smelled of rot. Every step sunk into damp leaves that clung like skin. The trees pressed close, thicker than they had been the day before, as if the forest had grown overnight. Marek cursed under his breath, following close. He had tried to stop Lucas, but in the end, he hadn't let him go alone. That was what best friends did, even if it meant walking into the maw of the curse. "Lucas," he hissed. "If it was really Emil, he wouldn't come back. You know that. They never come back." "No, he's my brother." Lucas sat back, his voice raw, desperate. "If there's even a chance." The words cut off.
The forest groaned. Not the wind, not branches. A deep, shuddering groan, like the earth itself was breathing. The air thickened with the stink of blood and soil. Shapes shifted between the trees, shadows where no shadows should be. Faces half-formed in the bark, watching. Marek grabbed Lucas's arm. "We need to go back." But then they heard it. A child's voice, soft, crying. "Lucas?" It was Emil. Lucas tore free and ran. They found him in a small clearing, standing barefoot in the mud. Emil looked the same as before, too pale, too still, but his eyes shimmered wet with tears. "Brother," he whispered. Lucas fell to his knees, reaching out. "Emil, it's me. I'm here." Emil tilted his head. His lips curled into something like a smile, but wrong, stretched too far. Marek yanked Lucas back just as Emil's jaw snapped open wider than any human mouth should, a shriek blasting out that rattled the trees. From the shadows, more children stepped forward. Boys, girls, some Lucas recognized, some long dead. All pale, all wrong, their eyes black, their bodies jerking like marionettes. The forest hadn't taken them, it had kept them, and now it was letting them out. The village was no longer safe. By dawn, 3 houses were empty, families gone without a trace, only streaks of blood leading to the trees. The elders gathered the survivors in the square, their voices shaking. "We must leave," one said. "Abandon the village." "Where would we go?" another cried. "The forest surrounds us on every side." Lucas stood among the crowd, Marek at his side, both hollow-eyed from the night. He hadn't told anyone what they had seen. He couldn't. To say it aloud would make it real. But when the wind blew, he heard Emil's voice again. Not crying this time, laughing. That night, the forest did not scream. The village did. For days, it was the same. Each night, more were taken, sometimes whole families, sometimes only children. Always without warning, without sound, until the morning revealed what was left. The villagers tried everything, fires, crosses, prayers, nothing stopped it. The forest grew thicker, pressing closer, until the paths out were nothing but walls of twisted bark. Lucas and Marek slept in shifts, if they slept at all. Each time Lucas closed his eyes, he saw Emil's face. Each time he woke, he half expected to see him standing at the foot of the bed. On the 4th night, he did. Emil stood inside the house, watching silently, head tilted. His lips moved. "Come." When Lucas blinked, he was gone. Marek grabbed him before he could run. "It's not him. Do you understand? Whatever that thing is, it's not your brother. If you follow it, you'll never come back." But Lucas's heart was already broken. The forest claimed the village one piece at a time. Roofs collapsed under invisible weight, wells filled with black water, livestock screamed in the night and fell silent. By the 7th day, only a handful of villagers remained. The elders were gone. It was just Lucas, Marek, and a few families barricaded inside the church. The air stank of rot, the walls shook with every gust of wind, and the windows showed nothing but trees pressed right up against the glass. They prayed, they wept, they waited. Then came the sound of children laughing. High, bright, endless. The doors burst open. They poured in. Pale, hollow-eyed children, their mouths open in shrieks of joy. The villagers fought, screamed, fell. One by one they were dragged into the dark. Lucas clung to Marek, but Emil was there, reaching for him, smiling that too wide smile. "Brother," he said, and Lucas let go.
The forest had swallowed everyone. Lucas, the elders, the families, until Marek was certain he was the last soul alive. The trees pressed so close he could hardly breathe, their branches clawing his skin as if trying to drag him back. But somehow, by some cruel mercy, he stumbled into daylight, a road, empty, silent. He ran until his lungs burned, never daring to look back. Years later, he still wakes up hearing Lucas's voice in the dark. Sometimes it calls for help, sometimes it laughs.
Marek never returns to the village, but deep down he knows the forest is not finished with him. And one night, when the laughter grows close again, he fears it will finally find him. If you enjoyed tonight's tale, don't forget to leave a like. It lets the darkness know you want more. Subscribe if you haven't already, and join our community of night dwellers who gather here for stories too chilling to tell anywhere else. And before you go, tell me, would you step into the forest if it meant saving someone you loved? Or would you lock the door, close the shutters, and pray the trees don't call your name? Until next time, keep your lights low and your fears closer.